Okay, we are live. Tom Presnell from Avid Angler Promotions. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic. So, Tom, tell our viewers about your business. What do you do over at Avid Anglers?
Avid Angler Promotions is something that I came up with after a friend of mine who competes at the semi-pro level said that there's a lot of guys out there that need some assistance, putting together good fishing resumes and, other promotional materials. And since he knew I had a background with some graphic design, my writing skills, I had, magazine, newspaper, and some advertising and marketing experience, he just said, listen, you should be doing this, I think you'd be really good at it. And so I kind of put the feelers out there. I got my first 2 or 3 clients, and we had really good success putting their resumes together. They got good results, and the rest, as they say, is history. So basically what I do is I build a profile of every angler. I also do full-time guides, and I also help out tackle companies. And what I do is I build a profile, based on all the information that I get from them through a custom questionnaire that I give them. And of course, we cater everybody's layout, everybody's design to their own personal preference. And really, my job is to make them stand out. And that's really what I strive for, and really what the company is all about. And the one big thing that I always tell everybody and try to stress with them is that, hey, you're having this resource done for a tournament angler by a guy who bleeds bass fishing and is a tournament angler. So I think a lot of other people might be able to slap together a resume, but don't have the mindset to get in or even the experience in the industry to get behind and really kind of construct what it is they need to get results from potential sponsors.
And by results, what do you mean?
Results would quantify as either product, large discounted products or services, or free, I was going to say free product, or monetary donations. A lot of these guys have very large entry fees. They have travel expenses, equipment expenses, and they really try their hardest to offset the cost of going on tour. Even, let's just say not the FLW or the Elite Series, but the notch or two down below that. And they rename them every year, but I'll just use like the Costa Series last year was sort of that professional level where it's, they're competing at a high level, but they don't, it's not quite as expensive as it is to do a higher level, but they still need entry money and equipment because they go through a lot of rods, reels, baits, line, etc. So that's really what we try to do is, and I try to steer people away from the more risky opportunities. And I always tell them, don't take anything on that you can't fulfill your promise. Along with what I do, I offer a lot of guidance and a lot of coaching. Some of them I even help with coaching, getting in front of the microphone when they're on stage at a tournament weigh-in. You want to make an impression, and that's what the sponsors remember, is someone who's memorable.
That's exactly true. So how has this whole COVID thing that we as business owners have gone through over the last 3 months, how's that affected your business?
I think it's affected my clientele more than me. I can work from home doing this. This is not my full-time occupation. My full-time occupation has been in printing and marketing for the last 25 years. But I've been taking this on as really, a way to help these people and also to earn extra money and also to pay my own tournament entry fees and my own equipment costs. But I think my business tends to come in waves. I find that I'll get 2 or 3 people coming into me, whether they're anglers, tackle companies, or guides, I'll kind of get them in waves, and then I'll have a little breather, and all of a sudden I'll get one or two more. Next thing you know, I got two or three more I got to work on. But I think this whole thing has impacted them a whole lot more than me. I can help them behind the scenes to kind of prepare them from when everything kind of dies down. But I mean, I would say that this whole pandemic has either delayed or canceled their competitions, which is the whole reason they got into this in the first place, is to go out there and compete and show not only their peers but also their sponsors what they're capable of doing. Some of them rely on it for serious income, and some of them rely on it for just additional income, or some of them can afford to do it independently. But I would say it really has affected them in that type of a manner. The other thing that it does is it's diminished their ability to actually get out and promote the companies and services that they're supposed to be promoting. They don't want to break any promises that they've made, any contracts. Very often these guys have more than just a handshake involved. They have some skin in the game, and their reward is very often, based on how much. I like to use the term, I'm sure you're familiar with it, ROI, the return on investment. Basically, how much they can boost sales or how much awareness that they can create is the direct feedback that their sponsor would get, and therefore, basically, what's the right word? Entice them to continue to give them the support that they want over the course of the season and hopefully into the future. The other thing that it really could affect is the potential to get the virus, that is, this whole situation, is their potential to get any new partnerships. I think that the whole industry as a whole, in my experience working with companies, is that I would say over the last 7 years or so, companies are not as willing to give out sponsorships, especially monetary sponsorships, like they used to, or even large quantities of free product. They're getting fewer and fewer, and they really want to kind of save that for the guys that have a really large amount of exposure. So I think that the pandemic has prevented or maybe hindered these guy or the clientele that I work with from possibly getting potentially new sponsors. And I feel for them, and I try to basically give them as much ammunition as we can, and as much coaching and pep talk as I can to get their foot in the door. I always talk about persistence. I always talk about keeping your name out there, even if it's just one post a week, just to kind of keep your name and face out there. It's really important, to maintain that in this type of a health crisis. So, trying to think of what else. I really do think it affects them a whole lot more than me. And
one of the questions I was thinking is have you come up with any creative ways? I mean, yes, we all go through kind of the same things about putting out content and keeping our names out there. But have you thought of any creative ways to kind of go at this? Seeing how small, medium, and large businesses are pulling back their advertising and their exposure. Well, when these other bigger companies are pulling back, that creates a vacuum because the consumers are still out there. So have you guys come up with anything that you're doing that you've never done before, that this whole COVID thing has allowed you to do that you probably never would have did if life hadn't changed so radically?
Well, I wish I could give you an answer that said I came up with a plan. I didn't. I generally deal with them on an individual basis, because all the clientele, I would say, have varying degrees of not necessarily ability, but the drive to go out and really go after what it is they're looking to get. Um, as far as me trying to alter or boost what I do, I actually have been trying to keep my own Avid Angler Promotions. I've been trying to keep that name on social media more. I've been adding a little bit more social media than I normally do, and I hate to say that that has become such a major part, but unfortunately it has. Whether it's me or any of my clients, or I mean, you look at any of the pro fishermen these days, and they either are doing it themselves or they pay somebody to do it, for them. Um, and there are people out there that will do, these type of social media posts on a regular basis for people. I don't offer that. If I didn't work full time, I might be able to get into that more and help them. I try to give them as much advice, or maybe what I'll do is create a custom Facebook background or a custom Facebook or Instagram picture, whether it's their sponsors' logos along with a nice, picture of them. But really, I don't have a plan. I've really just been coping with it, much like everybody else has. And the other factor is that my full-time job, I've been going in. I've been one of the essential workers because we do printing for. We actually do the packaging for the pharmaceutical industry. So all the the boxes you see, all the bottles are in, like you walk through your drugstore or a box store like Target or whatever, Walmart. We create all those we reproduce all those boxes for those pharmaceutical products. So I have an actual letter from the company saying that I'm an essential worker, even though I'm not a medical personnel.
Right. Yeah. Well.
But
But isn't it interesting though that talking about how COVID is changed businesses, and businesses have had to adjust to the economy being shut down and certain people being deemed essential, and everybody, the government saying, well, you're not essential, your business doesn't count. They actually gave you a letter.
yeah, yeah, they gave us a letter because the first 2 weeks where I live in New Jersey, there was quarantine. And there was a fear that we would get pulled over on our way. Especially me, I have a long commute. That we would get pulled over and they'd be questioned by the police. Why are we on the road? And that's why we carried the letter around, just to show that we were and we could. So and it has been scary for me and my family. Because even my daughter tells me, she's like, I hope you don't get sick because you have to go to work.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of cases in our building, but we have like 400 people that work there. And fortunately, the people who did contract it worked nowhere near where I work in the building. So knock wood, so far so good there.
So when in your business, previous to this whole shutdown thing, were you doing face-to-face meetings, or were you meeting on Zoom like the video conference call we're doing now?
Well, I would say I spend more time on the phone. I do talk to a lot of my clientele. Some of them I've become friends with, and we spend some time bouncing ideas around. Or if I think of an idea, and I also do writing for Bass Angler magazine, and I've come up with a couple article ideas that I've worked with my clients on. So I would say I spend a lot of time on the phone with these people. We also have I give people my cell phone number. We text a lot back and forth, and it comes down to even just sharing some tackle techniques, whatever it may be. If either myself or they are going to a particular body of water, or what to use particular circumstances. So I like to think that because I'm a one-man show, that I'm going to give people that really personalized experience. In fact, when I send a greeting letter, when somebody first signs on with me, we have like a little agreement letter, and in that letter, I clearly state, I said, our relationship does not end with an invoice. I'm always available if they ever have any questions, and numerous times I've had guys call me, text me, email me, and say, "Hey, listen, I'm working on a deal with so and so. What do you recommend, or how much do you think I should ask for? Should I ask for money at all?" And then we just kind of hash it out a little bit, based on what level they're fishing, based on the company, and then sometimes companies give away the fact that they have a limited number of people that they're actually going to be sponsoring, or some of them say like what their profits are last year, and you don't feel bad about asking for a lot of money. Those are
Right.
more rare, but it can happen. So I just try to really be accessible for everybody and kind of be like you know, I can't remember the character in Rocky the movie, but the little old guy in the corner, coaching everybody, cheering everybody on. So, and I'm thrilled when anybody ever gets a sponsorship that they got as a result of the resume or the letter or the proposal that we put together.
Nice. So, how do you see the changes in the industry, going forward? Because sponsors have pulled back, but you still have the same number of guys wanting those sponsorships. So, how do you see that affecting the future of basically professional angling?
Well, unfortunately, right now, the way it looks to me, and just the handful of people who I would consider like in the tackle industry, for instance, is a good example, or even the boating industry. There's actually going to be less of the pie in the I would say the next 9 to 12 months. That's not a good outlook, but I think it's going to come back rather quickly. I don't think it's going to be. When was that really bad recession? 2008.
2008.
It was horrible back then, and I'm talking. Nobody was giving away sponsorships, especially to amateurs back then. Everybody really tightened their belt, but I think in the next 6, 9, 12 months, it's going to be not as much pie to go around, and I fear, and I haven't heard of any yet, but I fear that some of the smaller tackle companies are going to go out of business. However, bass fishing being what it is and as popular as it is in this country and other countries for that matter, um, I think because people are able to buy so much tackle online these days, that I think the local retail people are probably going to take the bigger hit than the companies that you can order online from, and they may not take quite as big of a hit. So that being said, in the internet age, I think it's come a long way. The e-commerce has come a long way since 2008. I think I still had a flip phone in 2008. So,
Yeah. That or
I
a
really,
BlackBerry, one of the two.
yeah, my wife had the BlackBerry. I had the flip phone. So I
Yeah.
had the Motorola Razor or
Yeah.
something like that. But I think that it's going to bounce back quickly, just because there's going to be so many anglers out there that are chomping at the bit. I just think in the short term, some of the companies that maybe aren't doing quite the wholesale work, or the wholesale sales, might be taking a little bit bigger hit. But that remains to be seen. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the tournaments, and it's slowly happening, but as far as I know, like the end of June, some of the pro circuits are going to be starting again. And of course, it depends on what part of the country that these events are being held in. But I mean, as well as I do, I mean, this pandemic has affected pretty much every walk of life, every type of business. Um, I mean, I really can't think of anything that is basically, untouched by this. So, um, I'm pretty sure you could tell me a couple stories, things you've heard as well.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, in doing this podcast and in talking to so many different business owners, a lot of people, it's one thing when human beings, develop a new behavior like staying home and ordering online, but they've now become conditioned to think that being in large groups is bad.
Right.
So, maybe not so much on the angling circuit because the boats are, by its nature, not in the same body of water, and they really only get together at the weigh-in.
Right.
But think about a baseball game or a football game or a soccer game,
Yep.
or a basketball game where you've got, 80,000 people in a building.
Yeah.
And people don't just change those behaviors immediately. So I think it'll probably be more of a kind of a curve growth as opposed to that V that we keep hearing about.
I think you're right. That's probably a pretty accurate assessment. And, I can't talk about, any of the professional sports that, I mean, I'm a big soccer fan, and I know Germany has started up their league, but they're playing in front of, an empty stadium.
Yeah.
And I think some of the sports in the United States are going to start doing that as well, closed door competition. But the fishing, you generally have the meetings at the beginning before the tournament,
Yeah.
for the tournament directors to go over the rules and things like that. And I'm going to be participating in one next week up at Lake Champlain. And I happen to know that, they're going to want everybody to try to keep, I know it says it's 6 feet, but, they're going to try to exercise the social distancing.
Right.
So,
And that's what I'm saying is those behaviors are slow to adopt. And then once people adopt them, they're slow to unadopt them.
yeah.
Even though there won't be a threat. So
I think the people who've been in the less affected areas tend to be a little more, a little less understanding. In my particular area, which is northern New Jersey, I'm about 40 minutes from New York City. And as most people know, New York City was hit very, very hard, thousands of deaths, and especially in New Jersey has as well.
maybe it's not a good idea to take sick people and put them in old folks' homes. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. Well, and we won't go into it, but unfortunately, I know a couple people that have lost family members that way.
That scenario.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I've also heard a couple stories of people. Most of them had underlying health issues, but a couple other stories where they were fine.
Right.
Went to the hospital, and next thing you know, they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's scary. And knock wood. I think we're starting to see the state, or at least my state, starting to open up a little bit more. I'm definitely noticing more traffic on the highway.
Right.
So and I think the lakes are going to start showing that there's going to be more boat traffic, and people are going to be out. I mean, fishing you can do on your own. So that's one of the few sports that you don't have to worry about coming into a lot of close contact.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah.
In tournaments, you're right. You have the meeting in the beginning and the weigh-in in the end, but other than that, they're pretty separated.
Yeah. Yep. So, what's the situation down there in Florida? Is it to the degree it is up here in the Northeast?
Not at all.
No?
In Florida here, we're in what's called a phase 2, where pretty much the restaurants are open. They're starting to open parks and all that stuff, but the restaurants are at 50% capacity, and that'll probably last another week or so, and then we'll be back to 100% economy.
Well, that's fantastic, because we're not anywhere near that yet.
Well, our governor, I think our governor is kind of leading the nation, and it's Florida. I mean, we got sun and hot, two things that are bad for viruses.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, we've been talking for about 25 minutes, and as we come to the end, because I like to keep this about 30 minutes, is what are your thoughts on how business will have changed permanently going forward? Do you see more people you spending more time buying online and having more stuff delivered by Amazon?
Well, Amazon, Tackle Warehouse, Bass Pro Shops. I'm sure. I'm sure they're not guaranteeing shipments like they used to anymore. Um, Unfortunately, I love the local business. I mean, I try to support a local business whenever I can, whether it's
Amen. I do the same.
whether it's tackle, food, my car repair, whatever it may be. But the unfortunate reality is that there's not as much contact. When you are dealing with the Amazons of the world, and you see their commercials all the time and all the precautions they are taking. I'm sure they're going through their struggles as well, but I would like to see the retail stores open up, especially in my area, because there are some tackle stores that I do like to go to where I can get only certain things that are a little bit harder to find. Or say I'm on my way out to an event or just a fishing trip and I need something, whether a particular hook or a color bait or whatever it may be. I don't have to worry about ordering it online. I can hopefully run up there, just 5-10 minute drive and do it. But none of those stores are open right now. The only thing that are really open around here are grocery stores, liquor stores, of course, and restaurants are open for takeout. And
Right.
Everything else is really not, open in my particular part of the country.
Where we
So,
were 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, as far as, I think that, we are flattening the curve, as they say. And I would like to see, the local business start to open up because I know they're really hurting. And I think I read something, I don't know if it was a New York Times or USA Today article online that they're predicting roughly 30% of small businesses are not going to be able to survive this. And I think they were talking like 5 or less employees or something like that, which is a horrible. I mean, if you think about it, that's a staggering number.
It's millions of people.
Millions of people. And I have guys in my own bath club that have been furloughed. They've been laid off. I've been very fortunate that didn't happen to me. But even my wife's hours were reduced by 30%. And that, that has affected us as a family and as a household. So I think everybody's anxious for this to really, become more of a controllable thing. I think people are going to have a raised awareness of, how they act or how they cover their cough or sneeze or in public or in an elevator. I mean, I always used to get a cold every time I flew in an airplane, and and I know it sounds germophobic, but you're in this little capsule with not a lot of ventilation. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people fly on a regular basis, but it just seems like every time I jump on a plane, I end up getting a cold as soon as I get home. So, but let's both cross our fingers and hope that the little guys get to open up. I really want to see the local tackle stores open again, and I'm open for business. I'm online at avidanglerpromotions.com if anybody's interested, and if you need some help, I'll be happy to do it. My consultations are always free, and I'm happy to help anybody. And I've certainly, really been happy with the opportunity that you've given me to talk to me about all this.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, that's all the questions I have for you, and I really appreciate all the information you gave our viewers. But I also want to give back, and I always hold this question to the end, and I want to ask you, what does your business need? What can I do to help your business?
Well, I think word of mouth and directing people to my website and my Facebook page so that they can see the quality of the work that I do. I purposely kind of blur them out a little bit so that people can't, directly copy because part of what I do is one of my strongest points is the writing. I call it strategic writing, and I try to really make everybody look and sound as good as possible on paper. Of course, we create an electronic file. We can email it, or we could also print it out. But to have people, to direct them to look at the kind of the quality of work that I can produce, that would be the biggest thing for me, because I've found that it's been getting good results. And once people discover that having something other than just a black and white typed resume really makes an impact.
Yeah, I can absolutely tell you that as a person who hires lots of people, resume is going to be in my fingers 3, maybe 5 seconds total.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the nature.
Yep, you can make a quick assessment. You can kind of see who's put the effort in and who hasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I'm not trying to knock any anglers out there or anything, but there have been guys that are just absolutely killers on the water. I mean, they're absolute sticks, but really have difficulty, with writing and spelling. It's just people just aren't wired that way. I happen to be really strong in English in high school and college, so that's one of my fortes. I like to just kind of let them know that, I'm not gonna have a typo in their resume.
Not just that, but I can tell you just in all the different, not just people that I've hired, but in salespeople. I run 3 different businesses. I got people constantly trying to sell me something, and I really operate off of 2 rules. In 30 seconds, you got to either tell me how I'm going to, how what you're talking to me about is going to increase my revenue or decrease my expenses.
Yep.
On a resume, you better say that in the first line, because if not, I'm not reading anymore.
One of the things I always stress with my clientele is the bottom line is always sales. Always,
It's either increased revenue or lower expenses.
Yep.
Yeah. And like I said, and if you're selling yourself, it's got to be in the first line. Because if it's not in the first line, nobody's going to read anything after that.
Yep. All right. If any of my clients or potential clients are out there, listen to him. Listen to this guy over here. Let me see. I can't get that guy over there.
Yeah, it took me 30 years to be an overnight success. So,
well, you know what you're talking about, because what you said is 100% true.
Yeah. So anyway, Tom, thank you so much for being on the podcast. One more time for anybody watching this, if they are in the outdoor industry and they're looking for representation, how do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me through the website. There's a little block that pops right up that they can just enter their email address to be contacted. It's avidanglerpromotions.com, or they could also email me at info@avidanglerpromotions.com. And even on Facebook, I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome, man. Appreciate all the information. Have a great night.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate the opportunity, and I really, really thank you for allowing me to join you.
Nice. Take care.
All right, you too.